Well, here we are, another stop on the journey to finding hope, inspiration, and positivity in this crazy world we all live in. You are listening to Changing the Perspective podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and like this video below. If you are listening on a podcast service, please like our podcast on your preferred service. No matter how you choose to hear this interview, we are grateful you are following us on this journey. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Changing the Perspective. Today I have a author with us. Lauren and I actually connected on the podcast community that I talk about off and on. That community has been very supportive of each other and finding some guests that have some cool stories. We actually also did a live interview together on relationships, which was kind of fun. It was my husband and I and her, and then another co-host, which was awesome. So we've actually connected, and this is now our second time connecting. I appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So I guess tell us where your story starts that led to this book you're writing.
Yes, so my journey, well, I wanted to write, I talked about writing a book for about over a decade with my friends, and it was just jokingly because I didn't read books. I wasn't good in school, and I was like, how can I write a book? So I had no experience. So I just laughed about it. But then in April of last year, I joined a virtual writing workshop just for fun to start doing some creative writing. And it was something to do during the pandemic to keep your mind off negativity and have fun. So I did it, and I started volunteering. And when I started volunteering and reading my writing prompts with everyone, I was crying like a lot. And I didn't know why. And it was because I was writing a lot about my past experiences that were like, I thought buried in my deepest part of my soul, but it was bringing it out. And so something told me to just start writing this book. So I started writing my book in April of last year and then finished in December, and we'll be releasing in April of this year. But my whole journey is in that book. And so it talks a lot about, my story starts when I was 16. I had my first thoughts of suicide, where I wanted to take my life. I grew up in a home of abuse. Both my parents were mentally and physically abusive, and I had a broken family. My parents were divorced when I was young, so I was back and forth with my mom and dad. I don't really remember a lot of my childhood because I think I just had such a traumatic experience that I just don't remember any of it. I remember all the bad things, but not anything good. And I don't remember being in a very loving environment. I don't remember my parents saying, I love you, or hugging me, or taking me to the park, or all of those things that you want to do when you're a child. I just don't remember having fun. I remember getting yelled at all the time, getting spanked with the belt. You know, it was just a lot of things. I did a lot of chores as a child. But I do have to thank my mom for that, because I am a very clean person. And so I took like that into my teens. I ran away with the guy that I ended up marrying. My mom and her husband at the time convinced him to marry me at the age of 17 because my mom's husband didn't want any of her kids in the house. So somehow he convinced this guy to marry me, and I married him at 17. My mom actually had to sign something, that she approved it. So that kind of really made me sad too, because I was thinking, well, why would my mom want to give me away? I was so young. And so I was angry at my mom for a long time because I married this guy and I thought I was going to get out of the abusive home I was in, but I just went into 9 more years of mental verbal abuse. Married a guy that, had multiple affairs on me, gave me a venereal disease, my first and ever, never had one ever since, but he tried to blame that on me and said I was cheating on him. He dealt drugs. He went to prison. I had 2 kids with him, so I was on my own to raise two small children. And while he was in prison, and he had this kind of mentality of just doing wrong. Like he just wasn't a good person. And so I was with him for 9 years because I was scared to get away from him because he threatened to kill me and, all those things that, you go through as I was a teenager when I married him. I didn't know any better. And I had no support system. I wasn't going to go back to my mom. I
Yeah.
wasn't going to go back to my dad. So, and I couldn't be on my own. So when he went to prison, I finally gained the strength to build up the courage to leave him, because I had tried to leave several times, but then I went back to him, and it was just this kind of that type of relationship. And so I built the courage up to leave him. And I left him after 9 years of marriage. We finally divorced. But then that didn't make me happy. I still kind of was dealing with a lot of depression. I started getting involved with men that were unavailable emotionally. And I turned into a I was giving my body to these men because I thought that would make them love me. So those are the types of relationships I was getting into, was this giving of my body, not valuing myself. I had no self-love for myself at all. All I cared about was being with a man. I needed to be with a man to be happy. And every guy was the one. It's like I meet a guy, there was a lot of red flags. I'm like, it's okay. I'll grow to love him. And it was just like all bad. It just didn't help me at all. And I married a second time to a guy that wasn't a bad guy, but he still had control. Like he still wanted to control me. And I had, two amazing boys with him. And I only was married to him for 6 years before I fell out of love with him and wanted the divorce. So when I divorced him, I thought I was like free to do whatever I wanted. I was going to find myself, but I still was like struggling with this depression. And in my 30s, after that divorce, I almost took my life. I thought, if I got breast augmentation, I'm going to be happy. So I went and got breast implants because I always wanted to get it with him. When I was married to him, he said no. So when I divorced him, I went out, like, I think it was around Christmas time, and I was like, I'm getting breast implants. But it didn't make me happy. It was like, I did this to my body, and now I want them out. I've had them for, gosh, over 15 years. And it's like, I don't even want them anymore, but it's like, I look back to that time, it's like, that's how I felt about myself. And so I finally divorced him, and I did that. And then I almost took my life. And that's when I woke up, because I had 4 kids, and I almost took my life that night, but something stopped me, and I heard something. And I think it was my guardian angels, whoever was there with me. And I just didn't do it. And I just started going to therapy. That's when I discovered therapy. And I still had a lot of struggle to deal with. Like I still wasn't there. I still didn't know what love was. I was still getting involved with unavailable men. I was just lost and confused and just trying to find my way. And I remember seeing all these therapists and crying all the time. I don't know how many therapists I saw. They probably thought I was some crazy lady, but all I did was cry. I just cried in these sessions. And, they did help me. They gave me some self-help books, but I don't read books. I didn't read books. So I'm like, they're still sitting on my bookshelf that for years, it's like, I'm not going to read that. And so, it's just like, I just seeked everything and anything. And when I met my third husband, that was really when I woke up. That was at the age of 42, where I transformed my life. He had this fantasy where he wanted me to make love in front of him with other men. And I didn't know he wanted me to do this until after we got married. And I thought it was going to be a one-time thing. It's like, okay, one-time thing, let's have fun. But then he wanted to do it all the time. And it was a recurring thing. He was finding these men without me knowing. He was emailing them pictures of me. He was I found an email that I put in my book that really like hurt me, about the way he was talking about me, and she likes this and she likes that. And I was like, wow, who talks about their wife that way? He had no respect for me, but he even didn't have respect for me even before we got married. So it was that, once again, that thing in my mind where I was like, I have to do this for him. Otherwise he's going to leave me too, or this isn't going to work for me too. So at that point I was like so desperate. But then after 6 months of doing these encounters with him, I finally just said, I can't do this anymore. That was when my soul was literally empty. I had no more to get, no more to give. I was starting to slip back to that suicidal depression feeling. And I told myself I was never going to do that never, never, never go back to that again. So I had to get out. So I just left him a note one day while he was at work because I knew I didn't have the strength to leave him willingly. And I left and I didn't look back. And, he tried to get me back. We tried to do this back and forth thing, but I said, no, it's just not going to work. The trust was gone. He didn't trust me. I didn't trust him. And, I moved on and I just started finding myself at that point. I did get involved with one more unavailable man, meaning he was married. And I knew how to cut them off faster though. Like he said he was going to leave his wife. He wasn't leaving his wife. I was like, I don't want this for my life. And that was the last unavailable man I was with. And I met my husband, who I'm married to now. So I really kind of transformed my life at that point, but that was in 2017. And that's what brought me to write this book, was just to share, my experiences of those challenges in life that you can, number one, not give up on love, because I almost gave up on love. I thought I was damaged goods. Nobody's going to want me. 4 kids, 3 marriages, and I was embarrassed to tell people if I met a guy, it's like, yeah, I have 4 kids. It's kind of, why am I so embarrassed? Those are my children.
Yeah.
And it was just that whole feeling, and then I started meditating. I started working on myself, and that's when I found love. I started dating myself before I met my husband now, and I started discovering what I love. I wasn't doing it for another person anymore. It was for me. And that's what really transformed my life, was doing all that for myself.
Yeah. So in the abuse world, we talk about this whole, you tend to go back to your abuser so many times before you give up. But it sounds like for you, it wasn't always the same abuser.
Yeah.
So those 7 or 9 times that you went back to people was just scattered to lots of people.
Yep.
How did your kids handle that? Like as you transitioned between kind of that unhealthy to unhealthy to unhealthy type thing?
My kids, because they lived my second husband, I had 2 boys. My first husband, I had 2 boys. The second husband, the boys went to go live with him most of the time. So I only had them part-time. So I think that was another reason why I was seeking so much in men, because it was like, I don't have anybody around. I need to go do something. But when my husband came in my life now, he's my 4th husband. My oldest son, not my oldest son, my 18-year-old, he's 18 now. And he said, what's the difference with this guy? It's like, you say that about every guy, Mom. And that's what really struck me. And I was like, wow, what did I do to my children? Because they saw these men come in and out of my life. They met some of these guys. I tried to protect my kids from the men that I knew was really unavailable, like the men that were married. Right. I didn't introduce my kids to them. So I protected them in that sense, but they did meet these guys that I had, a year relationship with, and I thought they were going to be with me forever. And I probably told them that too. And I think they handled it really well, but you can tell they just didn't have faith and trust in who was the next one to come.
Yeah.
But they love my husband now. It's been since 2017, and they know that he's not going anywhere, and they know that he loves their mom, and I love him. And so I think it was just that proof they needed to see of living with them, and no yelling, because they've heard some of the yelling that these past guys and me did, and so, and they're older now. So I think they understand. I did talk to them about the book, that I'm writing this book, and your fathers are in this book. Unfortunately, it's experiences I have to write about, not nice ones. But it's not about them. It's about me and my experiences with helping people. So
yeah,
that's how they handled it. I mean, they don't really talk about it now, but
yeah. So I went through some crap, which we've kind of covered a little bit kind of in our past discussions. Also found now like a true love that's just different than anything else. But talk about that, like when you start dating that person that you end up falling head over heels for, but that's been your pattern in the past. So talk about kind of how you manage some of those like doubts or second guessing, yourself, or is this right? Because I know I had those. So
Yeah. What I know the difference now,
yeah.
that my husband truly loves me. And I didn't know that at first when I met him. A psychic actually told me I was going to meet him. She told me I was going to meet him in June of 2017. I was actually dating somebody. So I was getting closer to my dream man. This guy that I was dating in 2017, he was not mean at all. He just he couldn't give me what I wanted. He told me that in the end, that I can't commit to you the way you want me to, which is like the loving part of him. He
Yeah.
bought me everything, but that was his language of love, was buying me things. And I was like, but I need more than that. Like the intimacy just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so that relationship didn't work. But when I met my husband, the psychic told me in June of 2017 that if you don't meet him by the end of 2017 or the beginning of 2018, you're never going to meet this guy. And she told me specifically what kind of person he was, how he's going to love you. He had a daughter. And I thought it was all BS. I'm like, I don't believe any of that stuff. So she said, I can't tell you how you're going to meet him. But at the time I was on Tinder, and that's how I met him, was on Tinder. And I went out with him. I was going out with several guys, but it just wasn't what I wanted. So I was cutting them off faster. Like I would go for coffee, and then I would be like, this isn't for me. I knew that they wanted just the sex.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was used to. And I'm like, I'm not going down that path. I'm not doing it. So I would tell them, I really like you, but what you want and what I want is different. So I started having those conversations. And then I met my husband, and I didn't even believe him either. I was like, oh, okay, here's another guy, probably just wants sex,
Yeah.
And I put him through the ringer. Like, I feel bad for him. I'm surprised he didn't like run for the hills, but he had to follow all these men. I mean, 29 years of bad relationships. And so my trust level was like 0, And so how I knew he loved me was he was very patient with me, because I had trigger points, and you probably know about this too. Is like, I was like, well, what are you looking at her for on Facebook? Or why are you on there? And why are you on that? Why are you commenting on that? Who's this girl? And what he did was just be patient with me. He actually cleaned out his Facebook page. He said, I don't need to talk to any of those women, and he did those kind of things for me in the beginning. And that's when it was starting to build the trust. And then he asked me to marry him. And I thought, oh, this is just another guy that wants to marry me again, and even then I was like, I knew I loved him, but then I still didn't trust him. I'm like, well, how is he different than the rest? And so what really made me believe that he loved me was when I had surgery. I had to get my uterus and my fallopian tubes taken out. And this was before we got married. And he stood by my side from the beginning to the end, stayed home from work, undressed me, put my shoes on, because I had to get a C-section cut. And oh boy, I had my babies naturally. So I don't know how women do C-section. I was like, oh my God. I mean, to sneeze, it hurt so bad. I couldn't even move. And, he just took care of me. And then when I finally told him about the third husband, because I wasn't going to tell him, I didn't really want to tell him about that. He just held me and brushed my tears away, because I was crying. It was in a Safeway parking lot. And I was just like, wow, this guy really loves me, and that's when I really knew with those two experiences, along with everything else. He cooks for me every night. And, it's just like, he just loves me like unconditionally. He doesn't judge me. Even the book, like some of these experiences with other men, I wrote about them. He didn't know about them, but he said, that's okay, babe. That's in your past. I love you for who you are. And that's how I know the difference between, the other relationships that I had.
Yeah. I put mine through the ringer too. I'm really surprised he answered some of the questions that I had, because I had that 0 trust too. Like none. After you get out of a traumatic relationship, I weeded through a lot of crap dates. And actually, I started getting so good. I go weed them out in a couple hours of conversation over Messenger. Like, I mean, I was weeding them out fast.
Yeah.
And so when I met him, I put him through the ringer too. And he just answered it all. He answered it all. Like it was no big deal. And I was just like, okay, we'll see, you know.
Yeah.
So
That's
bad.
so funny.
So bad.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
had a
God.
list of questions for my husband too now because I was done. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to, like, do you want kids? No, it was those types of questions. Do
Yeah.
you like somebody who cooks? Because I don't cook. So it was like everything was like straightforward. I was like, I don't care. If you don't like it, then you're not the one for me,
Yeah.
and I'm going to move
Yeah.
on. That's the kind of like attitude I had because I was so done
Yeah.
with broken relationships.
Yeah. I hate in a relationship, and I've struggled with this in my new marriage as well, is that guilt and that blame from your past situations that you feel so guilty about them. You don't want to tell the person that you love all these bad things about you. Like I put myself through all of these things, and I remember holding back, but then I remember the day I finally just kind of like let the floodgates like open. And I think he even got teary eyed that I was so upset, that I had gone through so much. He's like, I don't even know how you're the person you are after going through all of that. Like, I would be a horrible person. Well, I had to explain, I went through a very dark time after.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I was not always the person I am now.
Yeah.
Um, how did you kind of just convince yourself that getting over the guilt? I mean, like you're writing a book about it. So, like, how did you
Mhm.
finally just decide I'm just going to be okay and forgive myself and just tell it all?
Yeah, that was hard. That's a good question because as I was writing the book, I almost gave up
Yeah.
more than a few times. My book is written in 4 parts: my 3 marriages, and then my 4th marriage and my happy transformational journey. My favorite part of the book is part 4.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the book is part 3, which is the husband that had the cuckolding fantasy. It's
Yeah.
called cuckolding. I looked it up,
Okay.
and it's this fantasy that men have, and they do this with their wives. And I didn't know he had that. Actually, I thought it was called threesomes. I didn't even
Yeah.
know there was a word for it. And while I was writing my book, I looked it up because I didn't know if I was being sex trafficked, if I was being human trafficked. I don't know if he was getting money from me. I didn't know anything about what he was doing to me. I just thought it was just this fantasy he had.
Yeah.
So when I did the research for the book, as I was writing about the experiences, because I do get into detail about the experiences so that the reader can see, not only I write them in scenes, but I want the reader to see what I went through to get to where I'm at today.
Yeah.
And it's not to like make people feel bad. It's my experience. And I feel like if I didn't put these experiences in there so detailed, I don't think people would get bored of the book. They'd just be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, what happened to her? So what?
Yeah.
So the 3rd part of my book, yeah, that was hard. And that's when I started meditating. Actually, I discovered meditation. So that helped me get through it.
Yeah.
I took a lot of breaks when I was writing that part because it was hard. I drank a lot of wine. So I was trying to like calm my mind and just go back to it. But I just gave myself the time to take breaks and, recollect my thoughts, go back to that writing of compassion, because I didn't want to write in victim mode. I wanted to write from a place of compassion, because that, even though that 3rd husband did that to me, it was still my choice. I chose to stay.
Mhm.
So I always believe it takes 2 to tango. And, I didn't deserve how he treated me, but something happened to him too along the way. And I don't know if he was abused. We never got into that conversation. He actually passed away. Him and the 1st husband passed away within 3
Mhm.
months of each other last year.
Wow.
So they were the worst part of my book, the
Yeah.
1st and the 3rd part. The 2nd husband, he's still alive. I don't even think he knows I'm writing a book about him. But I changed all the names in the book. So, if he picks
Like
it
you
up,
should maybe tell him.
I think the boys told him, his son,
Oh, okay.
but he doesn't
Oh,
know what it's about. So I don't think, hopefully he'll never pick it up.
okay. Oh, by
But
the
I
way,
don't have,
mom's writing a book about you.
yeah, but I don't have to worry about the 1st husband and the 3rd husband because
Yeah.
they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I did have to forgive a lot.
Mhm.
I did forgive myself. I did a lot of, with the meditation, I did a lot of inner child work.
Yeah.
So more crying, I thought I couldn't cry anymore, but yeah, I cried a lot writing this book. And a lot of things were downloading to me, like the title "Freeing Your Heart for Love" downloaded to me on a trip in Napa one weekend. The prologue downloaded to me. Like, things were just coming to me, and I would just write about it. And then, of course, you go through the professional editing and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really proud. When I finished the book, I actually did cry a lot because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm an author. Like,
Yeah.
how did that happen?
Crazy.
Like, oh my God, I still kind of pinch myself. I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
even believe I wrote a book.
Yeah.
I just can't believe it.
Wow. Well, I think it's awesome. I feel like the book is really about a success. It's really about showing people that you can go through a ton of crap and still find happiness. Like, you don't have to live in the crap.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome that you're writing this book. So tell us, like, where are we going to be able to find it and all of that?
Yeah. So go to my website, freeingyourheartforlove.com. It's available for pre-order now with some special bonuses, but it will release April 26th. I am going to put it onto Goodreads and Amazon, and I'm going to launch a Kindle.
Okay.
And I might do Nook, because somebody told me the other day they use Nook. So I got to figure that out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I do want to reach everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also, I have a free gift. If you go to my website, the same website, and you just plug in your email, there is a mini ebook of 5 simple ways to love yourself. So I just put that on the website last week.
That's awesome.
So it's a little mini ebook. I'm very proud of that document too, because I
Yay.
feel like that one you could print out and you could pass around to anybody.
Yeah.
Or put it on your wall or something. But yeah, I'm just
That's awesome.
I really want to help more people.
Yeah.
Women mostly. There are some men that follow me on social media, which
Yeah.
maybe men need inspiration too.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably. I mean, I have found I'm getting ready to do something called 20 questions of abuse. And I've got 20 people all interviewing on one interview, and they're each bringing one question where everybody raises their hand to show commonality between all types of abuse: parental, spouse, coworker, friend, whatever it is, to show that there's a common bond between abuse in all forms. And 25% of abuse happens with men, not women. And I do have 2 or 3 men that are joining that 20 questions interview to get, like, really the true variety of a sample.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they're not exempt from it. And I
Right.
know plenty of women out there that can be way worse abusers than any man I've met. So
I've heard of that too.
yeah, it's super weird because I tell my husband, now we go to a restaurant, I can look around and you can almost pick out those situations, male or female, it doesn't matter, just by the body language or the way that someone's talking to another person or whatever. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. So,
And like, there are men out there that are trying to spread that message. It's mostly women that do this type of work, but
yeah.
once in a while I've ran into a few guys that are promoting mental health and light workers, and I think it's amazing. Like, when your husband shared his story, I was like, wow, I can't get my husband to talk about his past life.
I mean, I pretty well just begged until he just gave up.
Yeah.
So I probably became the abuser, honestly, like, come on. I mean, until he finally was just like, I'm done hearing about it,
Yeah. Because men are, they're just they grow up to don't cry,
Right.
be a man,
Yeah.
put the big boy pants on, don't show emotion. It's like, it's just sad, it's like, no, you can show emotion. Like, my husband cries. So
Yeah.
I love it. I love the way my husband is, but
Yeah.
he needs to talk about his feelings more.
Yeah. I have the husband who said in his past he was more the female than the male in the emotional standpoint. And so we don't have a problem with just open discussion about all of that here.
Yeah.
Which is
Nice.
good. Now, to get him to tell it in front of camera, that was like a whole different story. So
Yeah. That was awesome. I love that. We want to have you two on our show. We have a podcast show too.
yes, let us know. We would love to join the
Yeah.
party.
I'll send you an email. We
Okay.
have our show's called Knowledge to Inspire. So
Awesome.
we have guests on there and
Yeah.
exciting things coming up for that show. So yeah, we'd love to have you and your husband on.
Yeah. Awesome. You just let us know. Well,
We haven't had a couple, so you would be our first couple.
yeah, you just let us know. We're in.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
So any advice to the people that are currently struggling with getting out of a situation or trying to just find some good when they're hurting or whatever?
Yeah. Get my book.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, don't try not to do it alone. I know I tried to do the suffering and the healing by myself
Mhm.
until I almost took my life. Because when you're in that place of, you're embarrassed or you're ashamed,
Mhm.
don't be embarrassed. There's so many resources out there of people that can talk to you, like Shauna and me, like I'm open to talking to anyone about anything, and sometimes people just need an ear, or
Yeah.
somebody to like listen. So that's the best advice I have. And just start conditioning your mind to see the positive side of life. Maybe don't watch the news all the time,
Yeah.
and open up a positive app and start reading affirmations. Cause I read affirmations like crazy, especially now with the recent things that have been happening around the world. I can't watch that stuff. I start crying instantly. I can't. So I focus on like the positive things, and I'm not bubbly all the time, but probably 95% of the time I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
But I think it makes a
Really.
difference. It really
Yeah.
does. 'Cause if you
Yeah.
start thinking about all the bad things, you're just going to be sad all the time.
Mhm.
No, I was there. And
We don't watch the news here. Like if we know something has happened, like we started to hear chatter, we'll kind of turn it on to go, okay, like what maybe we need to be aware.
Mhm.
And then we tend to just turn it off. And we feel like enough people are going to talk when something major happens that we will be informed that we need to go search some stuff.
Yeah.
But we don't just watch it.
Yeah.
We just can't. So
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I read an article that was a mistake. I was so emotional after that about the Boulder shootings
yeah.
and just the victims. They had stories of them, and these people didn't know they were going to lose their life that day.
Right.
And one guy was fixing a Starbucks machine in his car on the way to go fix another machine and got shot in his car. And I closed the computer. I started crying. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like
It,
even just talking about it, I can't imagine. And then the families.
mhm.
So
So
yeah,
bad. So
yeah.
bad. Well, we will make sure we put your link to your website in the description of this interview so people know exactly where to go to find your book. Um,
And the free gift.
yes, all of it. You just go to the website, you'll find it all. So
Yeah.
we'll make sure that it's in there so people can find it. For all those people watching on YouTube, when this comes out, we just ask that you subscribe to our channel, like this video, send Lauren a comment to the video. We'll make sure that she gets to see all of those. We tag her and everything so that she knows you're watching and we're inspired by what she had to say, or just tell her you're going to buy her book. She would probably love to know that that's going to happen. If you're listening on a podcast service, please favorite our podcast so that you can be informed weekly when we put out our new interview every Friday. New stuff coming, some super exciting things that we have done recently, and we're just excited to get information out to everyone. So I hope everyone had a wonderful week. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.